This is like a bad nightmare. Disney might consider splitting episode 9 into 2 movies. Well, I mean, why not? They pretty much split the fan community in 2 at this point. How's it going, everyone? This is Phil. So, this has been kind of thrown around here and there. And it's gaining a little bit of traction. It's all but been acknowledged by JJ, that this is a possibility at this point. At least as far as I've seen. I haven't seen anything that would indicate that he's acknowledged the possibility of splitting this up into 2 films publicly. But this is the conjecture on a lot of people's parts because this movie is just a bloated mess at this point. It's an overstuffed galactic turkey. Let's just cruise through this article. It's a short one. I'll fire off a couple of rounds as we make our way through, and then I'll close it out with my thoughts here. So again, it says Disney might consider splitting episode 9 into 2 movies. This comes to us from Nerdbot, and the author is Lauren Stone. So it says, according to MovieWeb.com, Star Wars Episode 9. Again, they can't say Episode 9. So, Star Wars Episode 9 2 is shaping... Star Wars 9-2. That's like a droid. Star Wars Episode 9 is shaping up to be the longest movie in the franchise's history, which isn't a good thing, because before that, the longest movie was The Last Jedi, and we all know how that turned out. Possibly resulting in an unexpected Episode 10, or at least that's the new rumor floating around the outer husk of Star Wars 9, floating around like a turd on the outer husk of Star Wars Episode 9, damn it, as we enter the second week of production starting tomorrow. Leaks continue to drizzle out. That's just nasty. Leaks continue to drizzle out of the bowels of Lucasfilm's ass camp. And the latest is that JJ Abrams and his team are aiming to have the longest film in the franchise with Episode 9. It might be so long. How long, you ask? So long it gets chopped into 2 movies. Just make it all go away at this point. Okay, so we already know that Episode 9 will be loaded like a plate of nachos with returning characters. Already confirmed to return are Jake Skywalker, General Leftover Footage Leia, Chewbacca the Vegetarian, Lando Pando Calrissian, C-3PO, we have nothing for you to do in this movie, and R2-D2, nothing for you either. We also have the main gang from the Force Awakens trilogy, including Always Right Rey, and Finn, the cowardly stormtrooper, emasculated Poe Dameron, the Kenny from South Park of the Star Wars franchise, Captain Phasma, who never seems to die, or if she does, she always comes back, and then bitch-ass Kylo Ren, and Ragdoll General Hux. Lesser characters such as Maz, Older Browner, Yoda, Kanata, and Unkar, Simon Pegg Had a Change of Heart Plutt are also said to be back. Also rumored to return are Yoda and Obi-Wan. Come on, man. And return it, and it's heavily rumored that Anakin, sure, why not? Let's get Qui-Gon in there, and Mace Windu, and why not Emperor Palpatine? Let's just get them all in and mix them up and see what we can excrete out onto the screen. Will return in some form, either young or old. So in the guise of real life Hayden Christensen or CG motion captured Sebastian Shaw. Give me Sebastian Shaw. I don't have anything against Hayden Christensen. Let's go pure on this. Okay, let's go pure with Shaw. That's the way. Hashtag pure with Shaw. I'm all about that. Personally, I'm on Team Hayden. Well, F you. What's more, as reported by We Got This, there are also lots of newcomers on board too, like Kerry Russell as Mara Jade, Naoma Aki, who is to me the only mystery character at this point, and Richard E. Grant as Grand Admiral Thrawn. And let's not forget, there's still more. Leads like Rey, we already said that, Rey, Finn, and Poe, all of whom are expected to undergo some major developments, really, as opposed to The Last Jedi, which there was basically no character development whatsoever. Certainly not any satisfying character development. Not least, Finn, who will be sporting a new hairstyle. Well, when a character changes his hair, what more do you need for development? That says it all right there. All in all, then it looks like episode 9 will be packed with fan service and character favorites, but will we really get 2 movies? Sounds like there might be enough material for it. Nerdbot will continue reporting as new details come out about Star Wars Episode 9. Look, and not to mention, they still got to find a way to figure out, it looks like JJ's bringing back the Knights of Ren. We're going to be going all over the place. We're going to be at Yavin 4. We're probably heading back to Jakku because of Ankar Plutt. There's also talks of the inclusion of Rodder the Hutt in this movie, and lest we not forget, the one and the only Rose Tico still has to find some screen time for her character development. Geez, this movie is going to be so crazy and so all over the place. All right, look, let's get back up here to everyone's favorite. So this is something that's been thrown around as a thought for a while now. Essentially, because The Last Jedi was such a disastrous waste of space in the middle of this sequel trilogy and an absolute black hole as far as character development, story progression, and paying off setups from The Force Awakens is concerned, not to mention the outright destruction of the entire franchise's flagship character, Luke Skywalker. Now JJ Abrams has been tasked with coming back into the mess left behind by Rian Johnson with a flamethrower. Like a government cover-up agency at a UFO crash site to incinerate any trace of The Last Jedi and the bad taste left behind in the mouths of a large portion of the fan base. So it's essentially a tear down and a rebuild all at once. And the initial thought was it would be a singular movie that would, by some miracle of a higher power, unbeknownst to man himself, close out this sequel trilogy and repair the damage done from Episode 8 and somehow restore the overall goodwill and faith in this franchise and the vast majority of the fan community, shared for the for the span of the last 4 decades. Easy, no problem. The problem is there's so much work to be done. It's impossible to do it in a 2-hour movie. It's impossible to do it in a 2.5-hour movie. Although The Last Jedi took only 2.5 hours to basically fracture, a mostly united fan base, but it's easier typically to destroy something, as opposed to build it up. Anyway, where do you go from here, right? 3 hours is asking a lot of people, and anything beyond that threshold should include a pillow and a blanket with your ticket, and a 3-hour or more runtime most likely will turn people away as opposed to bring them out to the theaters, and the theaters themselves, the exhibitors, they don't want a movie to run that long. They want a turnaround. They want to get people in and out of these theaters as quick as possible, so they can sell more tickets and sell more concessions. And, so that's a big problem, So, your box office is going to suffer greatly if you put a movie out that long. The general audience and casual moviegoer isn't going to want to have to endure such an undertaking of endurance. And a large portion of hardcore fans that would normally sleep out in tents the night before a Star Wars movie aren't going to show up in the numbers they once did. Those days are just over at this point. So you're left with essentially half a fan community and whatever other brave moviegoers show up to test their stamina. We're possibly talking Solo, a Star Wars story level of interest. And at that point, you may very well be looking at a main saga Star Wars movie that could struggle to break $1 billion globally, which is insane in this day and age with the cost of tickets, the wide release number of screens, and considering this is the finale to the main Skywalker saga, the saga of a celebrated movie franchise, one of the biggest franchises on the planet, the biggest, whose initial part one of this sequel trilogy cleared $2 billion, so in order for JJ to try and right the ship, he's now resorted to cherry picking from the prequels, the original trilogy, the Clone Wars animated show, possibly Rebels, anything he can get his hands on from the expanded universe, whatever he set up in episode 7 and had planned for episode 8, to pay off. And who knows, maybe some video games, the holiday special, and the Ewok Battle for Endor movies. Plus more planets and locations than any other Star Wars movie ever, they're saying, including, we're going back to Jakku, they're going back to Yavin 4 to blow that up, there's rumors of Mustafar and actually returning to Vader's castle, all this shit, and JJ still has to figure out a way to work Han Solo's dice into the script somehow. I mean, that's a big thing, So what's a director to do? How do you jam all that into a single movie? Well, you don't. You make it into 2 movies and you beg for forgiveness. In reality, JJ isn't shooting 9 and 10. He's essentially undoing and retroactively shooting 8 and 9 at the same time. I've said this before in another video, or 8.5 and 9. He's using old footage he shot for Leia in episode 7. And reportedly footage also from The Last Jedi, episode 8. He's going to show Kylo Ren being dropped off by Han and Leia, leaving him with Uncle Luke at Jedi summer camp. He's bringing back Maz Kanata to explain how she ended up with Luke's lightsaber. The Knights of Ren will be seen on screen and in action. Rey's lineage will actually factor into the saga, whether she's a Solo or a Kenobi or a Skywalker or a Palpatine. I mean, even the potential inclusion of Grand Admiral Thrawn, that it takes the place of Snoke as a seasoned, competent villain with actual poise and menace. Whose calculating and tactical mind would easily be able to manipulate an impulsive, quick-to-react Kylo Ren. And most of these, outside of Grand Admiral Thrawn, are all ideas, or scenes and elements hinted at or set up in The Force Awakens that easily could have and should have found their way into episode 8. And you would think if Abrams had stayed on board to direct, and he absolutely should have, at this point, especially after the dumpster fire of a sequel we ended up with, you would think, we would have already explored all of these things already. But Rian Johnson came in and essentially disregarded so much setup by Abrams, in the bullshit cop-out name of subversive storytelling. That JJ is left with almost no choice but to come in and do whatever he thinks is necessary to unravel this whole mess. Not only as it relates to the sequel trilogy, but within the fan community, and the battered state of this franchise. And the biggest indicator of this is going to end up being what they do with Luke Skywalker. If they bring him back, not as a Force ghost, but as Luke, mother effing Skywalker, it's a complete acknowledgement of the failings of The Last Jedi. And look, sure, no, I mean, nobody's going to come out and say it, and Abrams will take the high road, as he's continued to do thus far, as it relates to Rian Johnson and The Last Jedi. I mean, he's been a gentleman about that, but he can't be happy, and anybody capable of critical thought and the slightest ability to read between the lines would be safe in assuming this to be the case. I mean, JJ Abrams just got to be pissed off, and he's got to come in here and do this. He thought he was off the greener pastures. So, I mean, look, where do I stand on this split? Episode 9 into 2 parts, or make it 9 and 10, or as I like to say, 8.5 and 9 theory. I mean, I'm still of the opinion that when it's all over, we can move forward to better days. So the sooner that happens, the better. And the quickest way to get there is one episode, regardless of the length. There is a part of me that is curious, though, as to what a 2-part trilogy finale would look like, considering the patchwork, hodgepodge, cherry picking type nature of how many elements seem to be getting thrown into this movie. Plus, I mean, I'm just morbidly amused by all of this fumbling around, by people who are paid a hell of a lot more money to do what they do than I do at my job. I mean, it's almost a new thing every day, and I just find it insanely entertaining. Since I'm past the point of outrage and disgust, as far as actually being on board with the whole notion, the only way I'd quote unquote deal with it is if we get Luke back on screen in the flesh, and he is the hero. JJ said every time he would write The Force Awakens and Luke would show up, he would overshadow everybody in the movie. Well, yeah, he's Luke Skywalker. That's what happens when your flagship character shows up on screen. So let him shine. It's the last hurrah. You might as well at this point. I mean, not going that route in the beginning clearly was a mistake, and that's why we ended up where we are at this point. If you have him as a Force ghost in the first part, and then have him cross back over into the realm of actual existence by the end, and let that be the cliffhanger, then you'll have my interest for the conclusion. I would be like, all right, what are we doing here? Let's see. And look, I don't care how ridiculous it is. Whatever the reasoning behind actually getting him back into the physical plane, this whole trilogy crossed over into the plane of ridiculousness at this point. I mean, it's a long shot. Anything is repaired by whatever this movie or movies end up being. I know they say Abrams is trying to close this on a satisfying high note. But being a closer has never been his strong suit. And we all know that. And everything that's being done to finish the sequel trilogy, every new fanfare device or tactic or character that they roll out, it feels less and less like artistic inspiration, and more like corporate desperation. So anyway, that's my take, ladies and gents. But how do you feel about this possibility? Would you be up for a 2-parter, or you just want them to rip the Band-Aid off already and get it over with? I assume if they do this, we'll get a release of part 2 the following December in 2020, or they could release 6 months later in June of 2020. So, we get part 1 in December of 2019, 6 months later, 2020. In June, you get part 2, and then that gives you a year and a half to reset and then come back with, let's say, the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie for December of 2021. All right, and we're moving forward at that point. Kathleen Kennedy is out. Lucas Story Group has been cleansed. Dave Filoni has moved up the ladder to see where he is. There's a new president in charge, whether it's Dave or somebody else who works close with Dave. And, we're off to the races. The Clone Wars is back. Hopefully the Favreau show is something that's really great. And, D&D are on their way to giving us a Knights of the Old Republic movie. And we're done with Roundhead Ryan Johnson. This would be the turning point. And maybe another year and a half. So you roll this movie out 6 months after the first one. You just get it done and out of the way. That's almost the quickest way, or the best compromise to doing one giant epic movie. Is you release one movie and then 6 months later, boom, you hit us with the other movie and you're done. You hit the reset button, and then December of 2021, that really starts everything moving forward. You've laid some groundwork down with some other good stuff, with the Clone Wars and the TV show, and now you're really moving forward, and things are starting to go back on the uptick. Because Star Wars can be saved. It's not dead. It can be saved, and it can be really good again. It could be really, really good. I don't know if it'll ever be as great as it ever was, but it can be really good. It can be fantastic, and an absolutely satisfying experience on a lot of different planes. So that's it, just thinking out loud here. So, feel free to comment down below and tell me what you think. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing and clicking that bell button so the next time I post a video, you'll be notified right away. Until next time, guys, be happy, be safe, be healthy. If I don't talk to you for the rest of the weekend, enjoy your Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And for today, make sure it's a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.